Chicago's Morning Answer continues next on AM 560, The Answer.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. So President Trump not only broke through the blue wall last night, not only further marginalized some ruling class dynasts, those with the surnames Cheney, Clinton, Obama, Bush. He also maintained his reputation as the cackle killer. That's the second cackler he's taken out politically.
Sure has.
Which is nice. Interesting,
and
too.
It's the white woman's fault.
Interesting last night, too, just the reporting. As we're sitting here with 63% of the votes in Arizona and 86% in Nevada, waiting for these states to finish up their business and call the races, both for president and Senate in particular. And within Nevada has 3 million people.
Right. And
Florida has 23 million people, and Florida had 92% of the vote accounted for within an hour of the polls closing last night.
I know. Nevada's got to get it together. But I'll tell you, they stopped counting at 3 a.m. in the morning, and Sam Brown is ahead by 870 points to Rosen, who went to Hersey High School, by the way, and she married the Rosen family. You know that car commercial, Rosen.
Yeah, we call them votes in
votes.
electoral terms, not points.
I'm sorry.
But
I was thinking sports and got zero sleep last night.
So these Senate races are going back and forth. The Brown-Rosen race is close. We've seen Hovde and Rogers' slight leads turn into slight leads for Baldwin and Slotkin in Wisconsin and Michigan, respectively. So we're still holding out on those to figure out just exactly how big the working majority Republicans will have in the Senate.
60% reporting in Arizona. Kerry Lake is trailing. It's Ruben Gallego is ahead 50 to 47 there.
I think that's I don't know if Kerry Lake comes in. That wasn't a good enough campaign. She's running a full 5-6 points behind Trump. The larger question, though, too, is does this represent, because there's always a tendency, especially, this was a big night and it was a wipeout. But the idea that, this new Bolshevik party is just going to disintegrate into dust and blow away. Rui Teixeira, who writes over at the Liberal Patriot, left academic, argues that the progressive moment is over. He actually had been arguing about this for the better part of the last year, but thankfully, nobody in the new Bolshevik party at the federal level is listening to him. Loosening restrictions on illegal immigration was a terrible idea, and voters hate it. Promoting lax law enforcement and tolerance of social disorder was a terrible idea, and voters hate it. Insisting that everyone look at all issues through the lens of identity politics was a terrible idea, and voters hate it. Telling people fossil fuels are evil and they must stop using them was a terrible idea, and voters hate it. Right. Yeah, I concede the point. The question is, this party, as it's currently constituted, where the center of gravity is in the party, are they going to concede those ideas and pivot? Even a phony pivot, even a Kamala pivot, like on fracking, where they just sort of discard the position they've taken N times if we don't turn our economy over to windmills and switchgrass and solar panels. Or are they really going to make a pivot to, for example, present a more appealing posture to Pennsylvania energy voters? I don't know.
I just had an idea. Kamala Harris can be the new climate czar. John Kerry can resign and she could take over.
For the last month?
Yeah.
Yeah. Scott McKay, publisher of the Hayride, senior editor of the American Spectator, author of Racism, Revenge, and Ruin, as well as King of the Jungle, joins us now. Scott, thanks for being with us. Appreciate it.
Good morning, everybody.
So I know it's a happy day, and it's all good to celebrate. But what do you expect the public-facing presentation from the Democrats to be in the wake of last night's outcomes?
Well, this is all going to be Kamala Harris's fault, and it's all going to be Joe Biden's fault because he should have dropped out of the 2024 race a year ago, right? So, you're going to have those things. They're going to serve as very convenient scapegoats.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what you're going to see is sort of the Obama's last stand, because one of the things that this election signaled, I think, is that the Obama Democrat Party is throwing off parts, and keeping that machine alive is becoming an increasingly heavy lift. And the question is, how many people in the Democrat Party want to continue to do it? Because it's been 16 years. That's a very, very long life for a national political machine. And, it really ran out of talent at the top, as you could tell. And the question is, do they keep this going, or are there people inside the Democrat Party that decide, well, it's my time now, and so I'm not going to go and get Obama's blessing or agree to serve as his puppet or any of that kind of stuff? Because now it starts to look like the Republicans have built their own political machine that can overcome that machine that the Obamas built back in 2008. And so now you have to actually compete on policy, especially when you don't have messianic political candidates that you can offer up. Their bench is very, very, very short. So they're primed for a Bill Clinton 1992 sort of new Democrat shift in policy orientation. And the question is, will the machine, what's left of it, allow that to happen? And that's going to be the interesting thing, because they're in the wilderness. How many Senate seats the Republicans actually have, we'll find out. But the Democrats are going to spend at least 2 years in the wilderness, and Trump is going in now knowing what he has to do, which wasn't really the case back in 2017 when he took office. He kind of got rolled a little bit by appointing a lot of, I don't want to say never Trumper, but establishment Republican figures in his cabinet, and couldn't really launch an administration the way you would hope. But now, he knows exactly who he needs to appoint. He knows exactly who he needs to stay away from. And you're going to see at the very beginning part of next year, you're going to see some very quick changes, and you're probably going to see a legislative agenda that gets forced through whatever narrow margins in the House and Senate they force it through. Deals will get cut, people will get paid off, the political game will be played, and there's a whole host of things that have to get done, some legislatively, some executive order-wise. But you've got an incoming president who already knows where the bodies are buried, and that's a big deal.
So, what do you anticipate in terms of the Senate majority? A lot of things can get bottled up in the Senate. Mike Johnson, although depending on the size of his caucus, Mike Johnson seems pretty amenable to the Trump policy agenda. But the Mitch McConnells and the John Thunes of the world, much less so. And John Thune, of course, is the anointed successor of McConnell by McConnell and some others that are of the weak tea variety in that caucus. If it's 52 and not 55 or 56, and you still have to deal with the Thunes and the Murkowskis and the Collinses of the world, how concerned are you about the agenda being bottled up in the Senate by Republicans?
Well, my expectations in the Senate have always been low. But one of the things about having a veteran president is you call these guys in individually and you say, okay, what's your list? Do you want a bridge over this, canal in your district? Or do you want, some waiver from Medicaid for your state to do something different with that program? Or, what is it that I can offer you as a deliverable that would depend on you voting with me on these 10 things in my agenda that I've got to get done right now? I mean, there's nobody in the Senate that I can, at least that comes to mind, that Trump has alienated at the level that, say, John McCain was alienated in 2017 and 2018, right? I mean, McCain was waiting for the opportunity to stick the knife in Trump, and he did with the Obamacare vote. I don't know that, I mean, certainly you're going to have a problem at times with some of these establishment Republican types. But I don't know that there's anybody who's going to go out having stuck the knife in Trump. I mean, for example, a Bill Cassidy, who voted for Trump's post-presidential impeachment, is up for re-election in 2026. Bill Cassidy can't afford to go against Trump at all. Mm-hmm. Like, he can't. Mm-hmm. Mitch McConnell's a lame duck. He's out in 26. You know, it's sort of maybe a legacy deal for McConnell at this point, and there's really little reason why Trump can't just, you know, hey, you know, what do you want on the way out the door? And if you're a good boy, I'll make it happen for you. I think you're okay with McConnell in that respect. You know, the Collinses and the Murkowskis. I mean, it just depends. I mean, if you're doing things the public wants, like extending Trump's tax cuts, they're not going to go against him on that. Building the wall, they're not going to go against him on that. I mean, it just depends on how aggressive the agenda is, and you know how you can buy off your own people. Because now that you control both the House and Senate, even by small margins, you know you can buying off your own people in politics is not as hard as you'd think it would be.
So, in 2016, he said, you know, lock her up. He was going to prosecute Hillary Clinton. Then he backed off. Do you think he's going to be prosecuting his enemies here this time around?
I don't know about prosecuting him. Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, certainly there are people that put it this way: there are people that it wouldn't be an abuse if they got prosecuted. I think you might see an end to prosecutions more than a beginning. For example, I'm pretty sure Jack Smith's not going to get to run those trials in D.C. and Florida.
Yeah, but
I think Jack Smith's going to get fired pretty quickly.
Right, but here's the thing. Here's the thing on this. So Mike Davis, Article 3, founder of Article 3, who's a clerk for Gorsuch, who I like, who's on Bannon's Worm all the time. But he tweeted out essentially, hey, Jack Smith, you're going to find out how the hunter becomes the hunted. And you know, and Mike Davis is like, I don't know that, I don't know how serious it is, but I mean, he's been rumored as like a guy on the short list for AG. I'm not sure how real that is, but that's not really the point. The point is, I mean, those sorts of public, you can go after Jack Smith for legitimate reasons or anybody else, as far as I'm concerned, and you should. But to put markers down like this is very Letitia James ish, and I think you have to holster the bravado a little bit if you're going to pursue some equal justice under the law.
Well, I think you need to make sure that everybody understands the people that you would be prosecuting. It's a ministerial decision to prosecute them, not a political one, right? Like if you have clear evidence of malfeasance in office by a guy like Jack Smith, and it's the attorney general who is leading the prosecution, and there's no paper trail back to the White House or even the transition team or any of that. Like get a super aggressive attorney general, somebody who's willing to be a lightning rod and actually defend Trump from accusations that he's politicizing the Justice Department, as ludicrous as that would be after what we've seen over the last 4 years. I mean, look, there's a lot of corruption and there's a lot of abuse to be scrutinized on the Democrats' side and on the side of this Biden White House. What I might do if I'm Trump is I might weaponize the presidential pardon. In other words, I'll pardon Hunter Biden. And then, of course, Hunter Biden can get called in front of Congress to testify about the Biden family business, right? Like, you can do that. But I'm gonna put the stink of a presidential pardon on some of these people when you know you probably couldn't prosecute them because you probably have to try to do it in D.C. where you can't get a conviction of any Democrats. But make everybody know, yeah, you got pardoned because you did wrong, and that way you can at least tar some reputations.
Scott McKay, publisher of the Hayride, senior editor at the American Spectator, and author of the books Racism, Revenge, and Ruin, as well as King of the Jungle. Scott, thanks as always.
Hey, thanks, guys. Have a good one.
You too, and he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
There's only one radio show in Chicago talking about today's biggest stories.